If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And please join me on my website at nanice.com. Thank you.
It's your time for Chai with Nanice. Get ready for substance, clarity, change, and especially empowerment. Get ready to turn over stones, uncover stories, and get to the heart of the matter in every area of your life. Any mood runs, any emotion flies, and your dreams are within your grasp. There are no limits or boundaries, and your comfort zone is out of reach, yet it's the safest place you will ever be. Come in, sit down, and have some chai with Nanice.
Welcome to Chai with Nanice. I'm Nanice. I'm so glad you're here with us today. We are about to have an exceptional experience. It's not just going to be a show you listen to. It's going to be a show that you start incorporating into your life because it will open up your eyes to truths on this planet. Many of you have been listening to me for a while, and you know that I often expose greater, higher spiritual truths and energetic truths. Today, we're going to expose some truths that have been happening on our planet and are still happening now. Now, this information might be a little radical, controversial for some of you, but, a big but, I invite you for the next hour to just surrender your own beliefs, your old stories, your old paradigms, and just possibly start assimilating new possibilities and see what feels right. Now, having said that, sometimes we think something doesn't feel right because it just goes so against everything that we have believed before that moment. And having said that, I invite you to also just kind of drop all the old what feels right and try on some new ones. It's kind of like when you go into a store to buy a new suit or a new dress or whatever, and there's a new style, and you look at it on the hanger and you say, oh, that would never fit me. That would never look good on me. But a good friend or a salesman encourages, oh, just try it on. And you go and you try it on and you realize that this new suit or this new dress fits you even better than anything you have ever worn. So having said that, I am so excited to introduce my guest today. His name is David ICKE, and he is a phenomenal man. I know that in addition to the valuable information that you are going to receive today, the valuable epiphanies that you will receive, he is just so delightful and so entertaining. So a great show just to have fun and go on a ride. So let me tell you a little bit about David ICKE. Oh, I'm just going to tell you a little bit because I'd like him to tell you a little bit more. So David ICKE, he is an acclaimed British writer and public speaker. He is one of the most controversial thinkers of our time. He has been researching with a dedicated passion and never-ending thirst to uncover that which has been hidden from all of humanity, leading him across the globe and back again in search of one thing, the truth. And the truth really does set you free. A series of synchronistic events led him on a journey that not only changed his life, it's changing our lives, it's changing the world. Selling out venues wherever he speaks, across 7 hours, 1,000 images he shares with his own heart, experiences, research, and another view of life that lifts the veil, connecting the dots, unraveling the mysteries, explaining the true nature of reality, and answering the questions that never seem to have an answer. He is polished with humor and love, and he fills the gaps with simple solutions, exactly what we need. Thousands of people worldwide are now starting to see the conspiracy uncovered. And this is increasing at an incredible rate as humanity experiences a shift in consciousness. He says, it's time for all of us to take responsibility. It's time for the human race to get off its knees and make a stand. Wow, David, I'm so excited, so thrilled to have this opportunity. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. After that introduction, I can't wait to hear this bloke.
I know, isn't that really incredible? Yeah, when you're excited about hearing the person, and it's you.
I'm going to sit back and listen to it.
Uh-oh, we might be in trouble. Then I'll have to make up things on your behalf, and I have no idea what you're going to say. So, yes. So you've had quite a path. You've had quite a journey.
Well, yes, and I was a professional soccer player, and then I became a journalist, and then a television presenter, and then a national spokesman for the British Green Party, and then extraordinary things started to happen in my life, and it's a long story, but extraordinary paranormal experiences, which led me to a psychic who, out of nowhere, I was still presenting television programs, started giving me this stuff about you're going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets, and one man cannot change the world, but one man can communicate the message that can change the world. That was another line, and loads of this stuff were coming out, and this is in 1990, and I'm thinking either I'm on something or she is, one of the two. But after that, my life became this extraordinary synchronicity of apparent coincidence, which led me to people, experiences, documents, books, knowledge that showed me that a few people are actually running events in the world, and how they're doing it. It's a very simple structure that allows it to happen, and that their goal is to create a fascist, centralized, Orwellian state of total control and centralization of power. Now, as the years have passed through since 1990, particularly since the turn of the 21st century, and I've been writing books about this and what was coming and why and who was behind it, it started to unfold on the television news and in the newspapers, and it's now in front of our eyes and moving at a very rapid rate. But this process of synchronicity has had many stages. First of all, it took me through what I call the 5 sense level of the conspiracy, what we daily experience in engineered wars and banking scams and 9/11s and all this stuff. But it also took me on through that into the fact that this reality, this society that we live in, is actually manipulated not just by certain interbreeding families that go back to the ancient world, that sit on top of the banking cartel, the oil cartel, the political parties that have any chance of government, etc. But actually it's also being manipulated from beyond this dimension that we can see through the 5 senses, what we call visible light. And I wrote extensively about that. I continue to do so because more and more information about that level of this is coming to me. But yes. I went on through that in this amazing synchronicity of experience as the months passed into some extraordinary information about the nature of reality itself. And this whole conspiracy, what is happening in the world, is so multi-leveled, and the rabbit hole goes so deep, there's so many elements to it, that I understood why you have to understand the nature of reality, or at least the basis of it, and the other dimensional manipulation of this reality before you can really get a grasp on what's happening in the world and why it's happening and why things are done as they are, because it's a massive work of dot connecting. And if you only concentrate in one area, well, yeah, you find out a lot of very interesting information. But if you concentrate only on one puzzle piece, then you're only going to go so far. It's connecting the dots, or putting the puzzle pieces together, gives you the picture of the puzzle. And it's the nature of reality itself is fundamental to understanding everything else. Yeah.
So is it kind of like if you live in a neighborhood and you blame one neighbor for causing all the problems in the neighborhood, and you're focusing on that neighbor, but suddenly one day you discover the truth and you realize that it's not just that one neighbor. Every single neighbor is in it, whatever it is, in the neighborhood, and it's just coming out right now looking like it's that one person, but it's everyone. Is that
yeah.
more? Yeah.
Well, but put it this way, at the moment we're facing a massive scam, an extraordinarily dangerous one in terms of human health, whereby they've created a virus in a laboratory called swine flu with other stuff put in it because it's laboratory created. And now they're offering a mass global vaccination program as the solution to this problem they've manufactured. Now, or we can talk more widely about that, because if people care about their health and care about their children and grandchildren's health, which of course they do, then stay away from this vaccine, because this is a real big, dangerous scam, which I and others have been talking about for a long, long time was coming, this manipulated mass global vaccination program. So you can look at that in isolation, and you can look at the drug companies behind it. You can look at the drug companies' connections, fundamentally, again, to the World Health Organization. They're working as one unit, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in America. The same force is manipulating all these different faces, or quote sides, in this whole swine flu situation, and you can see that that's manipulated. But that is connected into 9/11, which was a manufactured terrorist attack to justify all that's come after it in terms of surveillance, in terms of foreign wars, and the so-called war on terror. And of course, they've gone for a war on terror because when do you know a war on terror has never ended? It's like in Orwell's book 1984, he wrote about the manipulation of a perpetual war which never ended. Well, how do you know a war on terror has ended? You don't. And that's why they've picked that way of going about it. And it also connects, these two elements connect into the manipulated financial crash of about September 2008. It connects into the manipulated Second World War, the manipulated First World War. All these things come together in one puzzle picture if you connect the dots between the same people, the same organizations, the same families, etc. So it's been an extraordinarily vast work of dot connecting this last 20 years. But of course, when you're putting a jigsaw puzzle together, the more pieces you put in, the clearer the picture becomes, so the quicker you can put the later pieces in. And that's where I'm at now, and other people are getting to now, whereby it's becoming so blatantly clear where they want to go and the methods of manipulation they use to get there.
Yeah. So I know that there's a lot of people listening to us right now, and they've got one word going on in their minds, and it's the why. We humans, as you know, we need that why in order to even start digesting some new radical information. So I know the why is probably pretty complicated when it gets down to it, but what would you say the why is in simple terms, as simple as you want, or too complicated, whatever you want?
This planet is basically a colony for a non-human race. That's what it's about. When you look at the ancient accounts and texts all over the world, you find a very, very compelling common theme, and that is of an interbreeding between a non-human race, which seems to have taken a reptilian form. There were others too, but particularly reptilian comes up in relation to this conspiracy, to create hybrid bloodlines, a hybrid DNA, which is what? A hybrid vibrational field. And these hybrid bloodlines became known in the ancient world as the demigods, the part human, part gods, because these reptilian entities were perceived as gods because they had technological and other abilities which seem extraordinary and miraculous to the people. These hybrid bloodlines were seeded around the world and became the royal families and aristocracy of the ancient world. For instance, the Chinese emperors used to claim the right to be emperor because of their genetic connection to the serpent gods, as they called them. But so one of the key areas.
It wasn't kept a secret. It was out there at that time.
If you go back far enough, yeah.
Yes.
But one of the key areas that these hybrid bloodlines came out of was ancient Sumer, which became Babylon, which is now Iraq, the land between two rivers, Mesopotamia. And there are Sumerian texts that talk about this non-human race and also the interbreeding with humans. And this is a theme that you find everywhere. In South Africa, my great friend Credo Mutwa, who's the official historian of the Zulu nation, and was initiated into this knowledge 50 years ago, they call this non-human race the Chitahuri, which translates as children of the serpent or children of the python. And the oldest form of religious worship on this planet that is known is serpent worship. They found clear evidence of it going back 70,000 years, and you find it all over the ancient world. You find this serpent worship theme. You look at the Bible, and which is just the rewrite of far more ancient texts coming out in terms of the Old Testament, overwhelmingly out of Babylon and Sumer, and you find that they talk about things like the Garden of Eden, where the serpent was. And do Christians really think that symbolic serpent in the Garden of Eden was literally a snake? If you take the Hebrew word for that serpent in the Garden of Eden, it translates as a two-legged, two-armed humanoid reptilian standing upright figure. And that Garden of Eden symbolism, if you just look at it, is about genetic manipulation. And they have genetically manipulated the human race in general, but they've absolutely created these hybrid bloodlines, which moved out of the ancient world, particularly out of ancient Babylon and Sumer. They moved up to become the force behind the creation of the Roman Empire. They moved up through the Caucasus Mountains, other groups of them, and up into eventually Western Europe and Russia and that area. And they became the European aristocracy and royal families. And after a while, when the population began to rebel against overt royal dictatorship, they then, although some of them remained, like the British royal family today, the Windsors, but they started these bloodlines to move into what I call the dark suit professions, into the new emerging politics, as the royal families lost at least their overt power, into corporations. They were the force behind the creation of the banking system, which they still control utterly to this day. Today they are the people controlling through ownership the global media, etc. And when we had the European empires, particularly the British Empire, the French Empire, but especially the British, they exported these bloodlines out across the world. And when the European powers apparently gave independence to places like the United States, as it became, and Canada and other former colonies, they left out in those countries the bloodline and the secret society networks which manipulates those bloodlines into power and their agents into power. And they've gone on controlling those countries ever since. One of the key hybrid bloodlines in America, in fact, the key one in America, is the Rockefellers. There are others around them, but they're the most prominent name that people would immediately know that are one of these bloodlines. And what they've set up is the equivalent of a transnational corporation, only it's secret societies. You've got a global web of secret societies, and the spider in the center of the web, the headquarters, using transnational corporation symbolism, is in Europe. It's in places like London, Rome, Paris, and Germany. And it dictates this unfolding global plan for the centralized control of the planet, with a world government, world central bank, world army, world currency, and a microchip population. And as it dictates the agenda, the unfolding agenda, in each country, including the United States, especially in the United States, there is a network of secret societies that have the job of controlling that country's politics, business, banking, corporations, media ownership, military, etc. And their job is to carry out and introduce the centrally dictated agenda in their sphere of influence, i.e. their country. And this is how I can go around the world. I've been to 50 countries researching this, and I see the same things happening in different countries at the same time, justified by the same excuses. It's this global web of interconnecting secret societies and families that allow it to happen. And we're now seeing it, what was in my books 15 years ago, unfolding on the television news every day.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So was this planned for this time? I mean, was it a plan that the secret society actually created? Was that a plan?
Yes,
or yeah?
It's a very long-term plan. It goes back in our perception of time a very, very long time, thousands of years, eons probably, and it's been an unfolding, constant centralization of power. Because if there's a few of you, and these bloodlines represent about 3 or 4% of the global population, that's all. But if 3 or 4% of the global population can manipulate the rest if they hold the keys to power, the key positions of power, and they control the finance, and they control the governments, etc., and they control the making of law, what have you. So if you are a few and you want to control the many, you have to centralize decision making. The more you centralize it, the more power the few have over the many. So if you look at history, first of all, we had a situation where we had tribes. There were tribes all over the planet that were deciding the destiny of the tribe and what happened in that tribe. We then reached a point where lots of tribes were brought together in a conglomeration called a nation or a country. Now, all those previous tribes that were deciding their own destiny and making their own decisions, now they're being dictated to by a central government dictating to all the tribes. We're now well into the next stage of that, all planned, of bringing the countries, the nations together under centralized control. We have that. We're well along the road in Europe with the European Union, where in Britain now 75% of the laws, and growing, that are imposed on British people originate from a handful of bureaucrats in Brussels controlling the European Union, not even elected people. They want in America to introduce a American Union, a European Union in North America of Canada, Mexico, and the United States. They have the African Union already in Africa. They want an Asia-Pacific Union and probably others. And that is to centralize power and dictate to all the nations. And we've come a long way already from tribes making their own decisions. And when you centralize power, something happens. You have more power to centralize even quicker. And that's why if you look through the last 100, 200 years, the speed of centralization of power in all areas of our lives has got faster and faster and faster, so much so that we now have a name for it. We call it globalization. And so we are heading fast towards this long-term plan. And here's something else. You know, I've been saying for years that George Orwell did not write his prophetic Big Brother book, 1984, from his imagination. He knew what the game plan was. And I've been saying for years also that if you get two books, 1984 by George Orwell, real name Eric Blair, and another one called Brave New World by a guy called Aldous Huxley, another British guy, who published that in the 1930s as 1984 was published in the 1940s. You put those together all those decades ago, and you've got very, very close to where they want to take the world and are taking it there by the day and by the hour now. So the question then comes, how can two people, one in 1930s and one in the 1940s, so incredibly accurately predict what was going to happen decades and decades and decades later, 50, 60, 70 years and more later? And how could they predict things that were going to happen that needed technology that they didn't even know about, or the world didn't even know about at the time? How could they do that? Well, it turns out that these two great prophetic books were written by George Orwell, real name Eric Blair, who was a student at the elite Eton College in England, where all the royals go to. And his tutor in French was a guy called Aldous Huxley. And Aldous Huxley was a member of something called the Fabian Society, which is one of these The inner core of it is a secret society that has been operating in Britain since 1884. And he introduced Eric Blair, George Orwell to the Fabian Society, and the Fabian Society is one of those groups that knew what the long-term plan was. It's the same society in the modern world that has been absolutely fundamentally controlling Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister who worked with Bush to invade Iraq and many other horrors. And through the Fabian Society, Aldous Huxley and George Orwell got access to this agenda and what was going to happen. And that's why they could produce two, quote, novels that were so incredibly accurate as we look at what's unfolding in the world now. Now, people have looked at 1984. They say, well, actually, it's called 1984, but it seems to us that it's set around the turn of the 21st century. So why did he call it 1984? Because Orwell saw what the Fabian Society was part of, didn't like it, and wrote 1984 as an expose of them. And he called it 1984 as a code, hoping someone would pick it up, because 1984 was the centenary, the 100th year of the Fabian Society, created in 1884. And this Fabian Society operates covertly in America and all around the world. So then you could go on to the next question, which is, how does the Fabian Society know, all the way back then, when the technology wasn't available, what was coming all this time later? And that's when you go into the connection with the non-human side of this, which is orchestrating this unfolding agenda through the timeline of this reality, while operating from another timeline just outside of what we call visible light, this frequency that humans can decode. And it's this non-human group that is the common theme through this long period of time that has coordinated this unfolding agenda of centralization of power to the point now where they want to impose the global Orwellian society that they've been working towards for so long.
Wow. So I'm sure our listeners are trying to assimilate this information, and the way in which you're presenting it, linking the dots, as you so eloquently put, that they're beginning to see a big picture. And I think when we hear a greater truth, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable, there's a part of us that just goes, oh, why does that feel eerily right? And that's why we can't stop listening, because we know it. So as people of this world, are we, if this planet was created by, alien intermixture with humans, what does that mean about us? And does that mean that we're part of it, or does that mean that we have a role to play in shifting out of it? What does that look like for us?
Well, there's lots of elements to this. First of all, if these entities could just take the planet over, they'd have taken the planet over. They can't. They're manipulating humans to, in effect, give it to them by allowing themselves to become so controlled. This is why they want the microchip. The microchip is not just electronic tagging. It's about external manipulation of our mind, emotions, and sense of perception. So this whole conspiracy that I'm describing, and there's so many other elements to it, and all the increasing ludicrously fine detail levels of surveillance and control are subjugating humanity so that we basically give the planet over by giving our power away and our minds away and our freedom away. And if you go deeper into this and you go into the nature of reality itself, it also is fundamental to understanding what's happening and why it's happening, because this reality that we are told is a physical, solid reality only exists in our head in the form that we think we're looking at. What we think is outside of us, like I'm in a room at the moment, and it appears to be outside of me, but it's not outside of me. It's in this form. It's only in my brain as I decode information. Yes. I call this reality, this virtual reality universe that we live in, the cosmic internet, because technology is now starting to mirror the reality that we are experiencing. we are consciousness. That's what we are. We're not our bodies. We're
Yes.
not,
Yeah.
our names. We're not our, the reflection in the mirror. That's the experience. That's what we're experiencing. David Icke is not me. He's an experience, a name
Yes.
for an experience. We are consciousness. Now,
Yes.
if our consciousness, this eternal, all-knowing consciousness, is going to experience this reality, it needs an interface. It needs a conduit. I'm sitting here at the moment in front of a computer. I can't just sit here and go on the internet. I have to have a conduit to go on the internet. It's called a computer. And through that computer, I can experience the internet. In the same way, consciousness, which is vibrating far too quickly to interact with this reality, this much denser reality, and if my consciousness tried to, pick my glasses up or, move the keyboard, it couldn't. It has to have a shell, a vehicle that's resonating within the frequency range of the reality it wants to experience so it can interact with it. And this is why we have a physical body, what I call the body computer. And I would offer, in my perception, a difference between mind and consciousness. Mind is the interface between consciousness and this virtual reality. And mind allows us to experience it. If we get caught in mind alone as our point of perception and observing the world, it is just the same as me going on the internet through this computer, and the computer starts deciding where I go on the internet and what I think of it. While I'm sitting here at the keyboard thinking, well, I can't make myself known here. The computer's taken over them, if you like.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the foundation of the conspiracy, because we're talking about levels of knowledge behind this conspiracy that understand fundamentally what I'm saying now, the bottom line of the conspiracy is to hold people in mind, to hold people in the five senses, so they're operating on the computer, the body computer level of perception, and stay disconnected from an awareness of consciousness. When you start to, what do we talk about? Open your mind and allow consciousness in, then your point of observation moves. You're not in this world and of this world, so you're in it and of it and therefore get bewildered and lost in it. You're in it through the vehicle, the mind-body computer system, if you like, but you're observing it now from a point of consciousness. Now the world looks very different. Now you can see how the dots connect. Now you can see what people are really saying as opposed to what the words seem to be saying. And this is the great fear that this whole conspiracy and its non-human and human, non-human hybrid level has, and that is of humanity awakening to its true nature, which is consciousness. Because when it does that, the game's over. It can we can only be controlled by being held in the five sense level of perception. And you look at society, Nanice, it's structured to get us to focus on the five senses, to experience everything through the five senses, and to stay disconnected from consciousness. That's not by accident, it's by design.
Right. Right. Is it kind of like when we dream at night and we don't know we're dreaming and scary monsters chasing us and we spend the whole dream just, defending ourselves and protecting ourselves, and this whole big, enormous production in our dreams creates this scary reality. And then all of a sudden, and many people have this experience, that in the dream, suddenly they realize that they are in the dream, they are dreaming, and they are the dreamer. And in that moment, that scary monster loses all its power and everything changes. Is it somewhat like that?
Well, once you start to become conscious, you start to take control of your reality. See, this virtual reality universe is a vibrational construct, and that's its prime state. It's a vibrational construct. The five senses decode the vibrational information into electrical information, same information, just different form, And that electrical information goes to the brain, which decodes it into this holographic reality we call the physical world. And this starts to explain so many mysteries that science is bewildered by. For instance, quantum physicists have seen that although science says this physical world is made up of atoms, this solid world is made up of atoms, actually when you look at atoms at a deeper level, they have no solidity.
Right.
So how can atoms that have no solidity make up a solid world? They can't.
Right.
And they don't have to, because the world isn't solid. It's holographic. It's a holographic 3D illusion, which we decode into apparent solidity. And how we decode that depicts what we experience. So one of the key points through which humanity as a whole is manipulated is through the decoding system in the brain. And I would give you this example. When, and I went to a few hypnotist stage shows when I was doing this part of my research a few years ago. And what you see is the hypnotist, the stage hypnotist, implants into the mind, the brain, the subconscious of the stooge on the stage a certain belief. And the brain then decodes reality in line with that belief. For instance, I saw someone given a potato, and they were implanted with the belief that it was an apple. And this person ate the potato and tasted an apple. And the audience were laughing. They could see it was a potato. The person on the stage couldn't, because they weren't decoding reality the same as the audience anymore. And, you know, in the Matrix movie, when the Neo character says something like, "This isn't real," and the Morpheus guy says, "Well, what is real? If you're talking about what you can see, touch, hear, taste, etc., real is just electrical signals interpreted by your brain." That's exactly what it is. Now, if you can therefore, through the messages that people are receiving through the media, through education, or what passes for it, and all these other sources of information, you can implant belief systems and senses of reality into people. They will, like the person eating the potato but tasting the apple, they will decode reality to fit the implanted belief. And so when you look at the world, it is a mass of rigid belief, religious belief, cultural belief, political belief, income bracket sense of who we are belief, I am my name belief. You know, that we're awash with beliefs, and all these beliefs are decoding reality to fit the belief, and therefore we are not expressing the full magnitude of who we are, which is all-knowing consciousness. And I've been reading a lot recently about scientific research into the way the brain works, and one area is, I mean, I wrote about this in books some time ago, but now science is giving it a name. They're calling them brain maps. And what they found is that when you repeat an action, or you repeat a belief because you have a rigid belief, the neurons in the brain fire off in a certain way. And they have this saying, which is, those that fire together, wire together. In other words, when they're fired together in a sequence, that sequence connects and becomes like a grid. And it fires in unison when they're faced with the same situation or the same thought patterns. And so it becomes a filter which filters reality into fitting the belief. This is why, I mean, so many people, if not everyone listening to this program, will have had this experience many times. When you talk to someone with a rigid belief, be it political or be it religious, and they do not hear what you're saying. If you say something that challenges the belief, two things happen. Either they react in a very over-the-top aggressive manner. That's the brain's brain map reacting to protect itself from this information that challenges its reality. And another thing that you will get is you say something and they simply don't hear it. It doesn't compute. And they'll say, "Well, you said that." And you'll say, "I never said anything like that." But they heard. they heard what you didn't say, because what you didn't say helped to confirm that their belief, their roadmap, their firing neuron network is the same. And when you become conscious and you start to break down these beliefs and programmed patterns of perception and behavior, these neuron networks that have fused together, if you like, these brain maps as they call them, they start to break up. And that's another reason why we start to free think in a much more powerful way, and through that we start to see things that we didn't see before.
And so when we see these things that have been there but we haven't seen before, and that I believe is what's happening now, and you're a huge piece of that puzzle, presenting it to us, and brilliantly, I shall say. And what then? Like, what happens when we start to, people are listening today and they're starting thinking, oh, this makes sense. Oh, is this really happening? Oh, could that be? And they become a little more conscious. They become more conscious after that, because they seek out information to support it once that introduction into their brain has been made of a possibility. So what then? Like, what do they do then? What happens then?
Well, when you become conscious, you know what to do. It's the mind level of perception that gets bewildered and in fear and wondering, what should I do? Consciousness tells you, you know what to do when you enter the realms of consciousness. But, you know, we are decoding the world in a certain way. And as a result of decoding it that way, we are making a contribution to the world in a certain way. And that combination creates the world we live in.
Yes.
You know, we could have a conversation here, and we could argue, and we could get angry, and we could have a conflict, or we could have a nice, friendly chat, and you take from it what feels right, and you leave the rest, and that's fine. It's the same conversation. It's just a different point of perception and a different decision on how to react and how to respond. So how we decode reality and how we respond to that creates the world we live in. And if we all respected each other's right to be different, if we understood that we're all one consciousness having an experience, and we're not who we think we are, if we respected the rights of other people to have different views and to us, and we all agreed that everyone should do what they want as long as they don't seek to impose it on anyone else, then suddenly we live in a world that is very different to the one that we have now, where so many people are trying to impose their beliefs on others, are trying to stop people having their right to say something they don't agree with. And it's all a choice. It's a choice on how we decode reality and how we behave that creates the world we live in. So at the moment, we live in a world that is mind-made. It's made by the body-mind computer. That level of perception is expressing itself in human behavior and human reaction. And not by coincidence, the human emotional reaction system, which is what most people live with, emotional reaction, not considered thought, is actually expressed through what science calls the reptilian brain, which is a part of the brain around the brainstem, which is our survival response mechanism. When you're driving along and the lights change and without thinking your foot crashes down on the brake, that's the reptilian brain. It's the reptilian brain which is fundamentally part of this survival mechanism known as fight or flight, where we face danger and we either hit the guy or run. That's again the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain doesn't think, doesn't work things out, it reacts, and it's constantly scanning our environment for possible danger. And if we allow the reptilian brain to dominate us, then we are constantly going to be in fear, because it's scanning the environment. Where's the next danger? Where's the next danger? It's constantly in fear. And if we operate at the reptilian brain level of perception, then we are going to have this constant fear, this constant worry, this constant anxiety. And how many people are going, hey, I feel that? Because enormous numbers of people do.
Yeah.
And that's the reptilian brain. And when you react to something in a very kind of aggressive, maybe, or over-the-top manner, and a few minutes later you go, I was over the top there, wasn't I? What was I doing? Look at the consequences for me of doing that. Why did I do that? That's because, A, the reptilian brain kicked in and reacted, and B, the understanding that you did that is coming from another part of the brain called the neocortex, which thinks things through. But
so
the
what I'm hearing you
neocortex...
say... what I'm hearing you say, and we only have another minute or so to finish up, and I just want to put the whole picture together for our listeners. So what I'm hearing you say is that we've really been asleep in a dream that's been made by our collective and individual minds, and now we're at this place of awakening, as the spiritual philosophy would say, and that awakening is simply becoming conscious and opening up to the perception of what we call reality beyond the human mind and body and all of that. And from that place, we just automatically create something different, because you can't be dreaming the same dream, whether that's a nighttime dream or this living dream. You can't be dreaming the same dream from a mind that's awake than you did from a mind that's asleep.
Exactly. But it's not just sitting cross-legged on a mountain saying, I'm become conscious. Consciousness expresses itself in action as well. We've not come here to experience this reality to then try to persuade ourselves that we've not. And that point I was making about the reptilian brain, the neocortex, to break out, as well as we could become conscious, to break out of this control mechanism of this collective manipulated sense of reality. Stop reacting to things and wait, take a deep breath, think it through, and then you override this reptilian brain reaction system, which is basically how humans are massively collectively controlled.
Yes. Wow. This has been the most fascinating conversation. I could just talk to you for hours. I'm totally enthralled, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you or find out more about your work and your discoveries, or they want to come see you at a seminar, would you be so kind to share that? And also keep in mind that our audience is not just U.S. They're all over the world, places that I've never even heard of before. So share whatever information you would like to help get in touch with you.
My website is davidicke.com. That's ICKE.com. You find out all about my books and talks and everything, then where to get tickets for them. But I'm coming to America in October. I'm going to be talking in Bellingham, which is in Washington State, between Seattle and Vancouver in Canada. I'm doing Santa Fe on October the 11th, Bellingham on October the 4th. Then I'm going to Phoenix, big event there on October the 17th. And then I'm coming to Europe, and I'm going to be talking in Athens, in Zurich, in Gothenburg, Sweden, and also on the 19th of September, before I come to America, I'm talking in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, and the details of everything is on my website. But, it's been a fantastic conversation, but there are so many dots, and the rabbit hole is so deep, we've scratched the surface.
Yeah, barely
That's how deep it goes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And having said that, I would love to continue this conversation at some point in the future and have you back on the show and, just keep going.
Problem.
Awesome.
No problem. By the way,
awesome.
these talks that I'm doing, I'm talking all day for 7 to 8 hours with 1,000 illustrations in 3 sections, connecting all the dots. So it's not like a 2-hour arrive and go home. This is a really major presentation of the dot connecting across all the different subjects and areas.
Yes. Well, you are an exceptional dot connecting person. So thank you so much, David. And I'm just so thrilled to have this time with you. So
I
will
talk again, I'm sure.
Soon. Absolutely.
Yeah,
thank you so much, David.
Thank you. Bye.
So, bye-bye. So many of you have been listening to the show and just trying on new ideas and paradigms, and thank you for doing that, because that's what changes our lives. So that little secret, that little key that you've been spending your entire life seeking and searching, to open up a greater possibility for you in your paradigm, in your world. This is it. We cannot create a new world. We cannot create a new life based on the old information, based on the old thinking. In order to change our lives and hence change the world, we need to become conscious and aware and open up to the endless truth. Because when we do, then we can make better choices. And as David said, just the waking up and you will know what to do. It's not even a question. You will know what to do. So today, I invite you just to be a conscious observer, investigator, truth seeker in your life and in the world. And one last analogy. So many of us have had situations in our lives where, something just didn't feel right in our families or in a particular relationship, but we didn't know what that was. And suddenly one day the truth is revealed to us. And suddenly when we get that truth, we backtrack that truth and we see how it affected, controlled, and manipulated our entire lives. But we didn't know it up until that moment. This is the same thing, because once you understand the truth and you can connect those dots and apply it to your reality, what we call reality, then everything changes. Then you have a new consciousness to make new choices. So please visit me on my website at nanice.com, NANICE.com, and I have a ton of information there. Well, I'll link David to my site so you can find him there as well, and enjoy free books and music and articles and a whole bunch of things. Till next time, you have been listening to Chai with Nanice.
Thank you for having Chai with Nanice. Please go to www.nanice.com for great free stuff that will empower you to live your best possible life. Free books, articles, shows, meditation audios, and so much more at nanice.com. That's NANICE.com. Nanice's books are also available in all major bookstores and Amazon. Check out The Infinite Power of You, Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad, Zest Point, Lip Prints, and many others by Nanice Ellis. To find out about one-on-one coaching and how Nanice can personally coach you to experience your best life possible, please email mybestlife@nanice.com.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And please join me on my website at nanice.com. That's NANICE.com. Thank you.